Hi, grade 11s. Please go on to Moodle, and under the Macbeth section, you'll find a worksheet called Lit Essay Practice. We are going to go through this today. An earlier video of mine just went through what a literature essay is, and now we're going to practice one together. So if you look at the bottom of the page of the worksheet, there's a topic there, and it says, Macbeth cannot be blamed for his actions. In the play Macbeth, as he is simply a victim of manipulation. So we've got a statement. Then it says, in an essay of 350 to 400 words, which is about 2 pages, explain whether the statement is true or false. So the first thing you need to do is you go and you highlight the keywords of the topic. In this case, it cannot be blamed, actions, victim of manipulation, and true or false. Now we go and we make a mind map using the keywords. So my mind map looks like this. Macbeth to blame with a question mark. And the ideas that I came up with were ambition, which would be his own fault, the witches, and Lady Macbeth, which would not be his fault. So if you have a look at the ideas I came up with, I am not choosing true or false, which is fine. You can argue both, which I always find makes it a little bit easier. But if you feel strongly one way, then that's your prerogative as well. Right, so now we've made our mind map and I've written down all the ideas that I can. So I've written down themes, characters, and events so I can back up these arguments. And now we're ready to do our introduction. So my introduction says, I don't know if you're able to read it there. Oh, it doesn't help my fingers in the way. In the play Macbeth, Macbeth is responsible and not responsible for his actions. So in that short sentence, I've done 3 parts of what we need in an introduction. I've stated what the topic's about by saying responsible and not responsible. I've mentioned the name of the topic and underlined it. And I've also stated my angle. So when you see state your angle, it means in the case where we can decide if we agree or disagree, we need to say this. And remember, I agreed and disagreed. So I said he's responsible and not responsible. So I've stated what the topic is, I've mentioned the name of the play, and I've stated my topic. The last thing we need to do is mention the arguments. Here it is. He is heavily manipulated by the witches and Lady Macbeth. However, his own ambitions also play a role in his terrible actions. So I've stated my 3 arguments. Now we move on to the body, and we need 3 different arguments, which are 3 different paragraphs. You can use the SIR method, but you can also use the Peel method. So I'm going to do one argument with you, and I'm going to focus on the witches. So to do the first part, state the S or P the point, I say, one reason Macbeth cannot be blamed for his actions is the meddling of the witches. So here I've made a point or a statement, but because that's quite self-explanatory, I do not need to elaborate on my point, which is the second part of the Peel method. So while the SIR method I find a little bit easier. The second part is we need to I, illustrate, or E, elaborate. And here are my points. The witches always want to break the great chain of being. They were looking for an opportunity, and they saw it in Macbeth. Then I mentioned the prophecy. Because they can tell the future, they were able to see that he was going to become Thane of Cawdor. So they were very clever when they said 2 truths and 1 lie. But their timing was also impeccable because they knew shortly after that Ross would come and tell him he's Thane of Cawdor. Even though the third is a lie, you've said one truth, you've made one premonition, the lie is not going to seem like a lie. Okay. The other point I made is when he was, when Lady Macbeth wasn't going to commit the murder of Duncan like she said she would, they sent a dagger to lead him. If you believe that. I do. And the last one is they also caused jealousy by saying Banquo's sons would be kings. And this sort of is going to lead to Banquo being murdered. All right. And then to do the L or the relate, this shows that the influence of the witches was very hard to ignore for Macbeth and leads to his terrible actions. You don't really need to put that there, but it is a good way for you to check that you're doing it correctly. Then I would have done the argument about Lady Macbeth. You know how she questions his manhood and her own ambitions. And I also would have said he's partly to blame because of his own ambitions. He desired to be king, and he keeps saying that this thought is unnerving him because it's a deep, dark desire. So you can talk a lot about that as well. In the conclusion, we need to restate the argument and also summarize our own arguments. So this is mine. In the play Macbeth, Macbeth cannot be held completely responsible. So if you see there, I've stated the argument and I've also restated my angle. I said he cannot be held completely responsible, which shows that I do find that he does a little bit. Although his ambition does drive some of his actions, the influence of the witches and Lady Macbeth are more to blame. So that shows a summary of my arguments. I've said that he's not really responsible. I've also put more blame on Lady Macbeth and the witches. So that's the conclusion that I come to, than his own. Because I say, although, I say those are more to blame. Please remember to have a careful look at your style when you write this essay. So, you must use formal register, which means there's no contractions and your language is very academic. You also must only use third person, he, she, it, and they. Because if you're saying I, you're going to say, in my opinion, which is making your argument very weak. And if you say you, then you're having a conversation with someone, and then it sounds more like a speech than anything else. Also, you must use the present tense because a literature essay is a commentary on a play. So you're commenting on the events as they happen, basically. And the word if is the worst word you can use in one of these essays. For example, if Hamlet had not listened to the witches, this wouldn't have happened. That is hypothetical and has no place in a literature essay. It makes the arguments weak and pointless. Okay, good luck, guys. Write this essay because it will come up in the exams when we write those one day. All right, guys, have a lovely day. Bye.